And astonishing goal. That's the way to do it. Herrera. Ibrahimovic! With 3.5 minutes to play. Now Di Maria wants it back, gets it back. Fantastic.
That's the luck of the bounce off Gaston Ramirez. Top try! What a day this is turning out to be for Manchester United.
Mason Greenwood hits the spot.
In he goes towards Muriel. What a save, David De Gea. Brilliant save.
And James. Dream debut. Daniel James.
Hello and welcome back to the United Devils podcast. This week we are doing previews and match analyses for Manchester United's first two Premier League games back from lockdown, a 1-1 draw away to Spurs and a 3-0 win at home to Sheffield United, before previewing United's next matches in a clash with Norwich in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup and a match away in the Premier League to Brighton. And with me today, I welcome back Joe. Welcome back. It's been a while since you've been on, Joe, but how have you been?
Yeah, I've been good, thank you. Yeah, I had to take a bit of a break from doing this, but happy to be back now and sort of coincided with football coming back, so all's good, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you back. And with me today, I also welcome back Jayson. We spoke last week. How are you feeling this week?
Well, it was pretty good week for United, the team itself. I mean, yesterday didn't help anything.
No.
Chelsea winning their match, but you have to feel good about where we are as a squad, I would say.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's at this point, this is sweltering heat in England. Obviously, can't be helping players recovering back from coming back from the long 3-month break, and the fact is that now the water breaks that have been heavily criticised have been actually really beneficial. But it was something that did actually have an effect in United's first game. Obviously, we were all expecting United to do really well before the break against Spurs because of Spurs' serious injury hit team and the fact that we'd just beaten City in the derby and then smashed LASK 5-0 in Austria. So then we go to Spurs, and then they have 25 minutes in or whatever. United have the better chances, and then straight after the drinks break, pretty much, Tottenham score on the counter. Bergwijn gets past Shaw and Maguire effortlessly, and De Gea can't keep out a shot that really he should have saved. After that point, United basically pressed. De Gea did actually make a really good recovery save for Son's header, just beforehand, so to stop it from being 2-0. But then United kept pressing for the goal, had about 60% possession, and it took till the 81st minute for Pogba to win a penalty fantastically after coming off the bench, and Bruno Fernandes slotted it in, and we could have had a second penalty, but it was given away. It was ruled out by VAR, and Mason Greenwood also almost won the game with a right-footed shot in the dying embers. So we'll just talk about that game as a whole, Joe. We'll start first of all with the Tottenham goal. Who do you find that there is one person more than anyone else you can blame? Because, I mean, I know Roy Keane was scolding Maguire and De Gea. Also, Shaw was, he was the one who was supposed to be marking Bergwijn and was clustered with Maguire when defending. But, I mean, do you find anyone directly at fault, or would you say it's a combination of all three?
Yeah, I think when you look at that goal, I think collectively that there was a few errors there. Like you say, I think it's very hard to pin the blame on one person in particular. And I think the interesting thing is just quickly on De Gea. I think since we've come back, in all the Premier League games, well, the ones that I've watched, I've seen a few sort of goalkeeping incidents and sort of mistakes, if you like, that have led to goals. And I just think that actually goalkeeper sharpness is something that a lot of people probably hadn't discussed in the lead up to coming back. I think obviously people were more concerned with how players would be getting up to speed as in like a sort of outfield players, but I think goalkeepers have found it difficult in terms of, technique and, just getting that sharpness in the mind and the brain in terms of saving shots. And I think that was the case with Dave. I mean, it was a very well hit shot from Steve Bergwijn, but I think the issue was with Dave was probably he may have not sort of experienced any sort of shots like that in the warm-up games and the training leading up. And also, I just think it was a technique issue with it. I mean, obviously, as we know, he likes to go with his feet normally, but the ball sort of came at him at an awkward height. And when you look at his arms, his arms and his hands, they were just in the wrong position. And I think it's the sort of thing that will come with time. But yeah, I mean, it was quite concerning because, like you say, Maguire was beaten quite easily. I felt like he was turned far too easily. And Bergwijn's the sort of player that when he faces you up, he can do that to you. And Luke Shaw was sort of very careless to sort of just head the ball and assume that United were on the attack and just sort of go wandering forward. But just to add to that as well, there was a situation where Fred was sort of on the shoulder of Bergwijn as he was running in. And I just feel a little bit more sort of experience in the Premier League. Fred could have maybe taken a cynical foul there. I know it would have still led to a dangerous free kick on the edge of the area, but obviously would have prevented the goal happening, and we would have potentially got away with that, and it's one of those fouls that he maybe could have taken for the team. But yeah, no, it's definitely not one person in particular you want to blame. There was a whole host of errors that just sort of led to that moment.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do see that. I mean, I hadn't noticed the Fred part of that, but yeah, that is a very good point. I mean, we see City do it all the time, really.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to advocate anybody sort of fouling anyone and the yellow card, but like you say, you do see teams doing it, and I think sometimes you just have to be aware. I mean, Bergwijn is someone who is very quick, and if he does get in on goal, he's more than capable of shooting with a lot of power, and I just think that's something that Fred, if he had his time again, may have done something to try and maybe pull him back or trip him. I don't know, but just something to stop the attack and take the yellow card and move on, and hopefully the free kick would have hit the wall or maybe gone high wide answer, but it would have been 0-0 at that point. So
yeah, that is very true. I do see that point. So would you say that then the words that Roy Keane was saying to or concerning David De Gea and Harry Maguire were far too harsh, or do you think that is sort of a very just way of just criticism?
No, I do feel that his words were probably a bit over the top. He was probably frustrated, Keane, to be fair, like a lot of us. I mean, obviously he's a Man United fan and he wears his heart on his sleeve. And I was annoyed at the time, and I was saying to my friend who was watching it with, he's got to be saving that. He's got to be saving that. But I mean, Roy Keane is who he is, and it was interesting because I felt they had a nice blend in the studio. They had Patrice Evra to sort of try and bring
good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, but good cop, bad cop. Sort of bringing things back down to earth, sort of thing, and just putting a bit of perspective on things. I think I do think it is a bit too hard because obviously we have to be wary that up until about 2018, David De Gea was the one true world-class player that we had in our squad. So he has built up a little bit of credit, but he just, I mean, I've said this in my sort of, in other articles that I've written that, that De Gea now has got a big sort of couple of months ahead of him because he could break his career, obviously, with the form of Dean Henderson. So, maybe he may not be United's number one for much longer. Who knows? Roy Keane might be right with that. On Maguire, I think it is worrying sometimes how Maguire can be turned like that. He's not the quickest of defenders, but I actually do think his sort of performances on and off the pitch pre the pandemic and during the pandemic he started to show that he could become a real leader at Manchester United. And I just feel that was just an unfortunate sort of, he got himself in a bad position. His feet were all wrong, and he doesn't make too many mistakes like that, to be fair. And he is very good on the ball, and he's easily the best centre back we have at the club. So I wouldn't say it's the end for either of those two right now.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I do totally agree. We'll move on to the more positive part. Obviously, United. We've seen United down the years post Sir Alex, unable to break teams down. When they get 1-0 down, they can't quite get the the goal, even when it's 0-0 or 1-1, they can't quite get that breakthrough to win the game or be as clinical. And we saw when Pogba came on, the fact that Bruno and him linked up well. We also saw it when Greenwood came on. He offered that little bit more than what Daniel James was doing. Because, to be fair, I think every United fan knows that Dan James isn't suited to teams that play low blocks. He's better when there's space ahead of him. But when Pogba came on, they linked up really well with Bruno. Could have, between the two of them, combined twice to set up Martial, but a great block from Dyer and a fantastic save from Lloris denied him twice. But it took a bit of magic from Pogba to open the game up. Jose Mourinho was actually very critical of both penalties that were given. Obviously, one was then overruled by VAR and disallowed. What was your opinion on both of them? Do you think they were the fair decisions in the end?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first one for me, I think Eric Dyer is lucky to get away with just a penalty. I mean, Pogba could quite easily have ended his career with that move, to be fair. So, and I don't think and he would be missed too much. I just think, obviously, Pogba is sort of beating his man, and it was a bit sort of lazy what Eric Dyer does, and it's something that I've criticised Luke Shaw for in the past. I think there's certain defenders who play in the league, and Eric Dyer is one of them, and maybe Luke Shaw, where when they're beaten, the only answer that they've got really is to sort of stick a leg out and trip instead of sort of trying to get back into position, because they know they're not the quickest of players. They're probably not the fittest of players, and they're the type of players that this sort of 3-month break would not have helped at all, to be honest. I think we've seen, obviously, with Luke Shaw's performance in the first couple of games, he looks like he still sort of needs a few more games to get back up to speed. Some players do need more than others. Yeah, so the first penalty I didn't have an issue with. I thought it was a penalty. Pogba did some great work down the side, and I think that's when Pogba's at his best, is when he's actually allowed to float anywhere around that attacking third, to be honest. And then the second penalty, I mean, I can understand why the referee gave it, to be honest with you, because it does look like one of those where the defenders tried to nick the ball and he potentially could have stood on Bruno's foot. You do see that a few times, sort of thing, and there is a brush of the sort of foot against calf or hip against hip, but I do think we would have been very fortunate with VAR for that to stand, and I mean, obviously we'd have taken it if we did, and I think all in all, United would have been good value for a sort of late win, because second half they were that good, but no, I think VAR got it right, and I think the referee got it right for the first one, and obviously VAR right for backing him up on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I do agree. I think the fact is that when I saw the first penalty, I wasn't sure about it, but then looking at it afterwards, I thought, yeah, that's clear cut. And then the second one, I was even more dubious as to whether it was going to be given. I thought it must, because it looked so similar to the first one, but then looking at it again, it was abundantly clear it wasn't a penalty. But
do you see what I mean when I say, obviously on the first one there, Dyer's got beaten, and
yeah,
it really he's basically tried to take a toe from Paul, hasn't he, by holding onto the shoulder sort of thing and somehow trying to regain some position. But I mean, you can't. I mean, players know nowadays you can't touch other players in the penalty box. You know, it's going to be a foul. So I just think it was very lazy on Dyer. It was. I don't blame him for being done by that bit of skill. We all would be. You know what I mean? But you know, at the end of the day, you can't then make up for that by just dragging a guy back, if you know what I'm saying. And someone like Paul, who's eager to have an influence on the game, if he feels that contact and it's hard enough to pull him down, then he's going to go down, you know, with his team a penalty. So
yeah, absolutely. We've talked about both the goals. Obviously, the penalty was, it was a godsend in the sense because we saw how well Pogba did. Do you feel, Jayson, at all sympathetic to, Fred and McTominay, who both started the game but came off? In the end, it was Pogba, Matic and Bruno who finished the game. But, I mean, what do you think went wrong for those two? Because they were in exceptional form before lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, with those two, with Fred and McTominay is, working his way back from injury. So that's, of course, part of where he's going to need a little time to get back to where he was, I think. And with Fred, I thought he played pretty well. I just think with Fred, the thing with him is he's a very good player, but he's just not the level of Pogba. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we're going to keep comparing him to Pogba, he's always going to come out on the short end. What I'm excited about, and I've talked about this in the past, when United were really rolling, when, under Sir Alex, when we were winning trophies and when we were competing in different tournaments and doing well and, winning trebles and winning doubles and, reaching finals, we had almost 2 squads of quality. And we're starting to see that finally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like where the drop off from Pogba is to Fred, instead of the drop off from Fred being Pereira, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, if I were Fred, would I feel like my place in the squad is threatened? Sure, I definitely would. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we were kind of half expecting Fred to start alongside Pogba. Obviously, you have the idea that Fred can play as an anchor, a ball-winning midfielder, and then play it to Pogba, who does all the intricate stuff with Bruno, and then we go from there. But obviously, I don't think that quite complements everyone properly. And I'll talk about it in more detail later. But obviously, Matic complemented Pogba and Bruno fantastically. So we'll have to find someone to fill that role for the next maybe 5 or 6 years, because obviously Matic isn't getting any younger, and while he has signed a new 2-year contract extension, it is going to be a bit difficult to see whether what the future lies for him in the next few years. Joe, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think someone like Nemanja Matic is, like you say, he's just a short-term solution right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to tend to agree with what Jayson said. You look at our squad now, we have got options there, and we've got different combinations as well. Like, I don't think you can sort of pigeonhole any of those sort of midfielders we've got as certain type of midfielders. They can all do a different sort of role. So, like, for example, if you want Scott McTominay to be that kind of defender that can sort of sit in front of the back four and shield, sort of like what Matic did against Sheffield United, then I think he can do that. But by the same token, in another game, if you're missing Pogba or Fernandes, then you want McTominay to go slightly more forward, but sort of more of an advanced role. He's capable of doing that too, sort of be that box-to-box midfielder. And same goes with Fred, Fred's capable of sort of, in the bigger games, maybe having more of a deeper role, being more defensive, but we've seen before that he's capable higher up at the pitch capable of sort of finding a pass higher up the pitch and getting into good attacking positions. So I think we've got good sort of versatility within the midfield, as well as having quality players.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, obviously we showed our quality in the midfield on Wednesday when United did play their second game since post-lockdown against Sheffield United, an empty Old Trafford. Ollie made 3 changes to the side that drew against Spurs. Obviously, Pogba starting, Matic came in for Fred and McTominay, and Greenwood came in for Daniel James. And the game was, it was a fantastic match, really. I mean, Sheffield United obviously had a few injuries and suspensions and cup ties that meant that they couldn't really field their full strength defensive side, which is obviously one of their biggest assets. And so United punished them. 2 poachers goals from Martial in the first half, and then a fantastic finish to get his first ever hat-trick and the first United hat-trick in the Premier League since Van Persie's title-winning one in 2013. Jayson, I know you did your article on the 5 things to take from that, and you said that Martial has the X factor. Obviously, him and Rashford have both got 19 goals this season, their career highest tallies, respectively. How great was Martial on Wednesday?
Martial played the type of game that I always want to see from him. I always wanted to see from him. I feel like sometimes he overhandles the ball, or he goes for the perfect finish, where instead of just getting it on frame and instead of just doing that, I feel like sometimes he tries to pick out a corner, or he sometimes tries to, gets caught between two thoughts, going for power, going for placement, and then does neither. So I thought what I loved about the two first goals, the third goal was just brilliant. That was just a great finish. But the first two goals they were so instinctual. They were the kind of stuff that you see from the greatest strikers in the world, like an Ibrahimovic, like, that level of player. Or, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on names.
Like Lewandowski, for example.
Like Lewandowski was exactly the name I was looking for. I just couldn't come up with it. I'm like Bayern Munich guy.
I know what you mean. Number 9. Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm like number 9, Bayern Munich. What the heck is his name? That amazing player who scores a ton of goals. But the type of goals you see them score, where it's just instinctual. It's like they're always like, how we watch United all the time, and there are these perfectly weighted crosses or perfectly timed crosses, and it's just like, and then the announcer goes, "Oh, but no one on the other end of that."
Yeah.
With Lewandowski, with Ibrahimovic, those guys were always on the other end of that. They just know when to make their runs, and that was the kind of stuff that Martial showed on Wednesday, like being in that right place for the cross, and then the one-time finishes were just brilliant. And it's the kind of thing where if he could play like that all the time, I'm going to expect a hat trick all the time. No, of course not. But getting those types of goals, that's how you go from being a 15 to 20 goal scorer to a 30 goal scorer. And it's how you go from a team that struggles and, has a game where they dominate and still end up at a 1-1 draw. That's how those turns into 2-1 wins. Having those guys that are just instinctual around the frame and know how to finish. And I'm hoping that Martial can, that's not like the one time we see that from him. I'm hoping that becomes a trend. What do you guys think?
Well, Joe, if you go for it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think when we brought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in as manager, I think one thing we could be sure of is that by the end of his time with it, if he improved nothing else, he'd probably improve the finishing of our strikers and getting our strikers into the sort of right position in the box. And I think during his time as manager, we've seen Martial sort of gradually score more goals like that. That was obviously the icing on the cake on Wednesday, and obviously even Rashford now getting himself in positions where he can score goals like that rather than sort of looking to beat 2 or 3 men and scoring a goal, because that's not always possible. And there are times in games when you just need to simplify it a little bit more and just make sure you're in the right place in the box to be able to finish a goal. And that's, Solskjaer made a career of it. It became a United legend doing it. So I think if he can get our strikers doing that, it's only going to benefit the team further. So yeah, no, I completely agree with what Jason's saying.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously we've seen Martial have moments of brilliance, especially under Mourinho. Obviously he had that spell where he came off the bench and scored. I think he scored 10 of his 11 goals in the first half of the season, in the 27-18 season. Then Sanchez came in and made a hash of everything. But then in the season after, he had, I think, a row of scoring in the 6 games in a row. I think he scored 7 goals in 6 games, which was exceptional. But it's never been like this. Maybe in his debut season, sure, he was crucial in Van Gaal's final season. But this season, he's been so much better. And let's not forget the fact that he missed 2 months of football when he was injured at the beginning, which I think he would have smashed 20 by now. But,
definitely.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously going to get all the plaudits for the game, but there were so many players that did really well. Obviously, Bruno didn't have the best game, but he still played at a 7 out of 10, which, I mean, that's his mentality there and then. Wan-Bissaka got another assist, which was fantastic, was defensively very capable, and on the attack, he was actually quite useful. But there is someone I do want to talk about, someone who I did mention before, who came into the team, Nemanja Matic. We can always talk about Paul Pogba, but Nemanja Matic was the one for me that made everything work. It was kind of the final piece in that jigsaw, because you have all those fantastic attacking players, but if you don't have a really solid, competent defender or defensive midfielder, you can't really utilize them. How important has Matic been for United since returning to the lineups, Joe?
I think, I said it, I did the match analysis for this game, and I mentioned it in there. There's no doubt about it. The link up between Fernandes and Pogba, and obviously the hat-trick of Martial, will be the stuff that sort of grabs the headlines in the newspapers and on the websites. But I don't think we can forget Matic's role in that game. I thought he was, in that particular game, the perfect foil for that midfield partnership to bloom and for the attackers to do what they wanted to do, because it had just allowed Pogba to sort of be a bit more advanced and sort of influence the game in the areas that you want him to. And then obviously it meant that sort of obviously pushed Fernandes further forward as well, and he was on the edge of it. I mean, I lost count how many flicks Fernandes sort of did on the edge of the opposition's box. I'd be right on the edge of the box, almost as like a sort of fourth striker, almost would play like four up top, because obviously it was like Pogba would normally sit a bit deeper out of those two, I think, but Matic pushed him forward, so it pushed Fernandes forward. It was almost like a 1-1-1 in midfield, if you know what I mean, one behind the other. But aside from that, also I thought his passing was very good. Matic, well, he sort of kept his ball retention was very good. And his passes, unlike under sort of Mourinho and early stages of Solskjaer, his passing was quite progressive. So he was looking forward. He was breaking lines with his passes, and and I think he's probably feeling more confident to do that, because he's now sort of passing the ball into the feet of like Fernandes and Pogba, who are players who are capable of taking the ball on sort of the half turn, or executing a one-touch pass after the pass has been received, and he feels more confident now to give these type of players the ball. So I think he's looking up now. So basically what I'm saying, he's looking up now and he's seeing Fernandes to pass the ball to, rather than maybe Martial or Rashford as a central striker, whereas if he passes it into their feet, he's maybe not so confident that they can take the ball and move it on. So that makes a massive difference. And he's, like every other player in our squad, seems to have been lifted by the arrival of Bruno.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact is that when you have that player that's demanding the ball and knows that they have the quality to deliver it further, the whole team just does flourish. Jayson, obviously we have said that Matic is a short-term solution. Obviously 31 at the moment, signed a 2-year extension despite links moving him to Spurs or Inter Milan over January. Do you see United in the summer coming in for a long-term replacement, or do you see us looking towards the likes of McTominay, Fred, or even James Garner as another option?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think with Matic, short term for sure. But short term, in footballing terms, a year is important, right? So if he can lock it down for a year, that's good. You know what I mean? I think the replacement's on the roster already. I think McTominay is the replacement. I don't rule out adding someone in a transfer. I feel like if you can improve the club, go for it, right? But I do really like McTominay for his role. I think he has the similar skill set to what Matic has. But just as far as the short-term solution, it's a pretty good short-term solution to be able to plug Nemanja Matic in. I mean, I said in my match reaction, and I said in the 5 Things We Learned article, the guy can still play. There's no doubt about it. He's a little different now. He's not quite as pacey as he was, of course. But if he could play like that all the time, or even close to that, and what Joe hit on was so spot on. Like, it wasn't just, and I said this in the article as well, or at least the match reaction, it wasn't just possession for possession's sake. You know what I mean? And passing just to pass the ball off your foot. Like, he was truly linking up with players capable of making runs and dangerous all match. So the long answer to the short question, definitely still think he's a short-term solution, but I'm okay with that. Like for a year, like you could do a lot worse than having Matic play that role for the most part, I think.
Thank you. Yeah. Joe, would you agree with that?
Yeah, just to expand on that, I do think, I think obviously it will almost become sort of enforced. It will be short term as well, because I do think this summer, obviously, we don't know how the finances are going to be affected due to the pandemic, and we don't know how the transfer market is going to look. But United certainly have areas of more priority that they need to improve, I think, rather than necessarily a defensive midfielder position. So I do think, obviously, I'm like Jayson, I don't have a problem with in there short term, absolutely no problem at all. And I do like the idea that McTominay will hopefully be the long term successor as well. So yeah, maybe in areas we don't have to improve. A little bit pie in the sky. Last week there was a lot of transfer rumours over here that N'Golo Kante may be for sale at Chelsea. I don't know whether that would be worth a little cheeky look at. Sort of the two clubs have done business before, and I still think N'Golo Kante's got a lot to offer if he's played in the right position. And I think as a DM, with alongside Pogba and Fernandes, he would be fantastic. But I think he would probably double in price if United came knocking on the door as opposed to someone like Real Madrid or AC Milan. So we'll see. But no, I don't think it's a position that they necessarily need to worry about right now, and certainly not with how Matic has been played.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll move swiftly on to what's next. We're not going to go straight into the previews because obviously there was some disheartening news yesterday. We were all tuning in, I'm pretty sure, to hopefully see Manchester City batter Chelsea. It's not. It's a rare occasion when you're actually supporting Manchester City, but yet City fell down to a Pulisic. Obviously, it was the stupidest goal. I'm still shocked by it. Calamity of errors on the halfway line, and Pulisic just ran through the City defence and finished it excellently. He's been fantastic since coming back from lockdown, Pulisic. And then City equalised with a fantastic free kick. Still not enough. They needed to score another to prevent Liverpool from winning the title there and then. Sterling had a one-on-one where he hit the post somehow. And then in the end, a winner penalty by Willian after some stupidity from Fernandinho gifted Liverpool the title and gifted Chelsea 3 points, making them still, I believe, 5 points ahead of United in the race for top four. So two things to discuss, obviously. The fact is that City Liverpool are champions. I'm sure it's a gutting feeling for everyone there, but obviously, I'll ask you how are you feeling about that?
Well, I'll take it first, Joe, if you don't mind. I was going to say with Liverpool winning, it was inevitable anyway. They're going to win the title for weeks now, months really. So that didn't bother me so much as the fact that Chelsea is now 5 points up on the race for fourth. That's more, to me, that's more pressing. Liverpool was always going to win the title. But my thought, right, as I've, had some hours to digest this now, has been the same one that I've had for years as both a sports fan and a player, a former player myself, not soccer, but baseball, and being involved in races against other teams to win championships. That you need to take care of your own business. Like when you're relying on other teams to help you, that help doesn't always come. And at this point, we need to just win our matches and try to get to, as many points as we can. And hopefully in the end, it's enough to get Champions League. But that's just kind of how I feel about it now. Am I angry at City? Sure. The one time, you want them to do you a favor, and in their home pitch, and they can't even beat a Chelsea side that we annihilated, So, but in the end, like I said, you relying on other people doesn't always work out. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was just about to say, is it wrong that I woke up this morning more depressed that we were 5 points behind Chelsea than the league, really? So I think, yeah, no, I mean, that's all I could think about during the game. I mean, I was even hoping that City could just get a goal in the sort of last couple of minutes of the game just to get a draw at least, you know what I mean? I mean, our goal difference is better than theirs at the moment. So, I mean, I'd have taken a point because that would have obviously been the difference between a win and a loss. But yeah, I agree with Jay. I mean, Liverpool were obviously always going to win the league. It's something that we've all had to sort of get to terms with. We've all had a few months to get to terms with it, haven't we? And and I also agree with Jason when he says, it's unfortunate when you get yourself into a situation where you're relying on other results to sort of help you get to where you are. But that's where we are now. The other worrying thing for me is that I'm not quite sure about Chelsea's running, but I would argue that's probably their toughest game they've got left. I know they've got West Ham at home at the weekend, and having watched West Ham a couple of times since the return, that is not going to pose any problems at all for them. I don't think so. It's wondering where they are going to drop those 5 points. In all honesty, I don't know. I mean, do they still have to play Liverpool again? You might have. I don't know whether you've got the fixtures there, Arjun, or whether you're aware of it. But that Liverpool team could look very different by the time it plays Chelsea. Now they have the title wrapped up. So it's actually quite worrying to see where those 5 points might be dropped, because I think Chelsea in their first couple of games have looked very good. I mean, they fell behind Aston Villa in their first game, but they played very well in that first half, and it was a miracle how they were behind. And they obviously quickly turned it around in the second half. And then this was their second game. And as frustrating as it was to see Man City not do the job, for spells of that game, Chelsea was very impressive. And, they look like they're building something there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you did say you are right. I believe Liverpool playing Chelsea in their penultimate game of the season. And that could be a very different team, to be fair. They could have, I think they are trying to beat City's point record of 100 points. They are trying to do that at least. And they could easily do that before then, if I'm not mistaken. Because they've obviously only drawn twice and lost once. So they have, if they get 35 wins, I mean, that is 105, isn't it?
35. Yeah.
105 points. So they'll have 107 by the end of the season if they win every single one of their other games, which means they'll have already won. They'll already have 101 points before they play Chelsea. So they might not even bother, to be fair. I mean, they've got the No, they haven't actually. Chelsea might have the FA Cup as well to play in, I think, around that time as well. So that might be something for them to consider at that point. So yeah, you're right. It is sort of, it could be a completely different side, but it just depends on how they do it. I mean, it's just a shame that Chelsea didn't drop. It's like the one time where we've actually won a game, Chelsea win a game, but then when we draw, they win. Like against Everton, then they got 3 points, and then when we dropped points against Spurs, they won 2-0 against, I want to say, Watford.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where we're just going to have to keep fighting. And obviously we hope justice is done with City's ban, and then even if we can't quite get past Chelsea, fifth place will still be Champions League. But that's not where we want to be. So we'll have to just push. We'll just say we'll just stop there, really. I mean, moving straight on, tomorrow United are actually playing in the FA Cup, quarter-final against Norwich City. This will be, I believe, the third time in the last 4 years United have got to the quarter-final. Actually, is that... Sorry.
Well,
actually, sorry, it's the fifth time in the last 5 years that United have got to the quarter-final, having gone to the final twice after that point, but actually being knocked out in 2017 to Chelsea and 2019 to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Joe, are you more relaxed about this than the last few FA Cup quarter-final matches we've had? Obviously, Wolves one was tricky. The one before was, I believe, actually, it's a much easier game. I believe it was against Wigan, but I mean, we obviously had Chelsea in that period as well, and West Ham when we won it in 2016. So, are you a little bit more comfortable with this? Obviously, the current situation at Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it's let's not sort of fool ourselves. It's the game United should be going and winning and winning quite comfortably. But we spoke a little bit about this off air, and I just think, for me, the only concern I've got is that Ollie's already spoken today that he may rotate the squad a little bit, rotate the team a little bit, and then we're going to sort of see a couple of players that we haven't seen post lockdown, and we don't know sort of how they will respond, how their performances will be. I mean, in particular, I'm talking to like Jesse Lingard, who we are all wanting to see improvement from in the squad, and to see where he's sort of at. So there may be a few players who play on Saturday that will have question marks about. And the other thing we need to be sort of aware of is that I think, by all intents and purposes, Norwich are probably relegated now, although not mathematically. It's very difficult to see them getting out of that because of the sheer number of teams that they would sort of need to get past now in order to get out of the drop. So they may look at the FA Cup as their sort of one chance to really have a go at something this year, and I think they'll be bang up for it on Saturday. So while United are going to make changes, they need to be careful and not take their eye off the ball, because make no mistake about it, the FA Cup would be a massive trophy for Solskjaer to sort of win in his first season and sort of get the ball rolling with getting the mentality in this squad and winning trophies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so massive because he said at the beginning when he first joined what he wants to do is he wants to get United being the hardest working team in the Premier League. He wants us to be playing interesting attacking football. He wants us to be winning trophies, promoting the youth academy, and obviously he's done 3 of those things. We've seen the difference in the work ethic and the actual performances, and we've obviously seen some great youth players come through. Gomez has had a few chances. Chong's had more chances. Williams and Greenwood are now first-team regulars, you'd have to say. That is all there, but it's that silverware that we need that people still then criticise Solskjaer for because he hasn't won silverware yet at United, and that is the thing that he needs. And obviously the fact is that the Europa League is set to resume as well in a mini league in August, which will be hugely beneficial because United can then have another European trophy that they can put on their belts, because they've only won the Europa League once under Mourinho, so that is something that they will actually respect and want to win. Jayson, how many changes would you expect Solskjaer to make to the side? Because obviously we have got a difficult away game against Brighton to come up, but how many changes do you see him making in that game?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the fixtures are coming fast and furious, aren't they? I mean, we're literally, it feels like it's Man United game day or match day every day. I mean, we just finished two matches, and then we're talking about another match, and then there's going to be another one. So at some point, and I mean, people are not talking about this at all, but the weather's a factor. I mean, normally we've been watching winter football, right? I mean, some hot games in August and some hot games in May, but now we're talking about matches in the end of June, early July, where fitness is going to be an issue, you know? So we're going to have some changes. I mean, you see they already have the 5 substitution rule now, so he can be even more liberal. And you saw Solskjaer really take advantage of the 5 subs on Wednesday afternoon, making, I think, what was it, the first time ever a quintuple change? Yeah. So I think we're going to see a vastly different lineup. But that, you know, and Joe, you kind of hit on this. That kind of gives me some fear about the FA Cup match, because like you alluded to, Norwich has nothing to lose, so they could play any which way. They could come out and just attack, or they could come out and just sit 10 behind the ball and dare us to score and try to get the penalty kicks. You know. And ultimately, they're going to play relaxed. They've got on paper. I don't know what the odds makers installed this as, but I'm sure it's some crazy line where we're huge favorites. Yeah. So, literally nothing to lose. And we've seen it before in the FA Cup, where squads who are facing relegation have made runs to the final and even won them. Didn't Wigan win it while
Yes,
being
it
relegated?
did. Yeah, 2013. Yeah.
Yeah, they were, I believe, relegated, and they won. They beat City, I think.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So, we've seen stuff like that before. And for a team like Wigan to make a run to the final, that means they slayed some giants along the way. So there's, this is not like a foregone conclusion that United's going to win this match, just by rolling the ball out there, right? So ultimately, I do expect a lot of changes. I think the 5-sub rule is going to benefit us. So, like, if we are stuck in a 0-0 at, like, the 70th minute, we could, throw a Pogba on or, throw a Fernandez on. But, yeah, it's a little bit of a scary proposition. But I think as much as I want to win silverware, the priority still has to be the league, because you could still get 4th. And the other way to Champions League is winning Europa. And as you mentioned, Arjun, that's major silverware. I mean, I hold this over Man City fans' heads all the time. Like, they want to talk like they're like a big club, but I mean, they haven't even won Europa. They haven't even won that European competition. And that's like, we won it a couple of years back for the first time. And I remember City fans giving me crap over celebrating that win, and I said, hey, talk to me when you actually won something in Europe, So I mean, seriously. And as I just said before, like, it's a path to Champions League. So I think if you're actually, I'm interested to see what you guys think, ranking the importance of the competitions. I'd say Europa is 1, League 2, FA 3. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I tend to have to agree with that. I think Europa League has to be placed at 1, because not only is it a trophy, but it's that gateway into the Champions League as well. You know what I mean? And then obviously it depends on how you rank your confidence in terms of winning Europa League, to where then you put the league and the FA Cup. Because if you're confident you can win the Europa League, you don't need to worry about the league. But obviously no one can be confident of that, especially in its new format. Because am I right by saying, Arjun, that there's plans to move the Europa League, so it's like a one-leg format, isn't it?
Yeah.
On a neutral ground. So I mean,
I believe it's supposed to be set.
It will be a lottery who wins it this year, because there'll be no sort of home advantage after a certain stage or anything like that. So I don't think anyone can be confident of winning any of the European trophies sort of this year. I mean, I would have said that Bayern Munich and Man City, if they didn't meet before, would have been a shoo-in for the final, looking at the form of both teams in the Champions League. But
absolutely,
if that's taken to Portugal and they're having to play these games on a neutral ground, then that's all that could change altogether. Plus, the German league is about to end now, so they're going to have a big gap between the end of their league and the Champions League, and for them, they're going to have to manage that time really well in terms of maybe putting in a few friendlies before that European tournament comes along.
Right.
So, but I mean, that's obviously I've digressed on Champions League. So yeah, I'm with you. I sort of put Europa League sort of first, and then maybe probably the league, because that's always sort of the bread and butter. But one thing I will say quickly on this, Arjun, is no matter what team they put out on Saturday, they cannot underestimate the importance of that game in terms of how the rest of the season will pan out, because a loss to Norwich on Saturday and at the expense of resting a few players could then affect the game against Brighton in the league, and then you could quite easily see them losing that as well, a stadium that we've actually not won at yet. So it's sort of like, you cannot, even though you might want to rest a few players, the cost of a loss there could also sort of have a knock-on effect in the league, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, and we've seen where United's form has kind of rested on a knife edge, right? Where sometimes, I mean, Arjun and I joked about this on the last podcast about, Ole in, Ole out, sometimes within 5 minutes of a game, right?
Yeah.
Between the 5th and the 10th minute, it's Ole in, Ole out.
Yeah.
So, like you said, this team, I think they're confident now, but a loss to Norwich, I think, would really shake that confidence. What do you think, Arjun?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing is that it was around the quarterfinal stage last year when things started to really go wrong in the league. We obviously got knocked out. Then the Champions League came about, and that went horribly. And then the Everton game, the Chelsea game, the Huddersfield City. We had a couple wins sandwiched in there against Watford and West Ham, but they weren't really good enough. I mean, there were 2-1 wins at home each. It was hopefully bad omens don't repeat themselves in that sense. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think a loss to Norwich could be really detrimental. And the fact is that the next game we got is against the resurgent Brighton, who are fighting like tigers every single game. I mean, the draw against Leicester was solid. They had some good chances. They obviously missed the penalty. The game against Arsenal, I mean, that's Arsenal in a nutshell. But still, they had to score the goals. Something they were struggling to do all season without Neil Maupay. So it is going to be a tough game, and United need to take each game professionally, and they need to make sure that they give their all and put out the best performances they can. They obviously have to rotate the teams. That's a given, but we'll have to see how that pans out. I do expect the side who played against Sheffield United to start against Brighton. However, I do expect changes for the FA Cup game. Would you both agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, just given the fact that, all the factors that we had said, the weather being hot, the fixtures coming, daily, basically, you're going to have to rotate the squad.
It's a balancing act as well, because the thing is players like Jesse Lingard and Juan Mata, who are two players who I'm guessing may play a sort of more a larger role in the Norwich game. They're the sort of players that in the league you want to feel like you can turn around to your bench and like, I can throw these guys on, and they're the type of players that can influence the game because of the type of players that they are. But if they haven't got their minutes under their belt, then they can't, it's very hard. If, say, for example, Juan Mata plays 10 minutes against Norwich and Jesse Lingard gets a 15-minute run out, when you play Brighton in the next game, if you're looking around and they've only had that amount of football under their belt, then it's very difficult to expect them to come on and influence the game. So I think, we do want to give these players a chance, but we don't want to weaken the team too much as a result. And if we get the best Jesse Lingard and we get the best Juan Mata, we won't be weakening the team too much. But it's the unknown at the moment, because the form before the lockdown suggested that they would obviously be a weaker option than what we're currently putting out.
Thank you. Yeah, that is very true. But with all that considered, I will be taking your predictions for both games. So for the Norwich game, I predicted 4-0 in the preview. Jayson, what are you going to go for?
I think we're looking at a 2-0 or a 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
All right, thank you. And Joe, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go. Well, I'm actually going to go for a repeat Wednesday. I think we might get another 3-0. So I'm going for 3-0. Or potentially 3-1. You could see Norwich scoring, maybe scoring first and sort of setting it up. But I think,
right.
3-0 or 3-1 for me.
That would certainly show the strength of the team if Norwich score first. All right, well, obviously the Brighton game is going to be a slightly different kettle of fish. Jayson, what about the Brighton game? Do you see United getting all 3 points?
I do, but I think it's going to be a war. Brighton, like you said, they've been playing very, very well. I think they nicked that one. I think something like a 1-0 for that one.
Thank you. Would you agree with that, Joe?
Yeah, agree. I mean, like I said earlier, we haven't won at the Amex yet, I don't think. So it's time to put that right. It's quite weird how they've not won there, to be fair, because they've never tended to play too well there either. But I do think, same as Jayson, I think it will be a war, because I think Brighton will turn it into a war. And they've got better players and a better structure to do that than the likes of maybe Sheffield United would have liked to have made it a war at Old Trafford, but they just didn't have the squad capability to do it. So I think Brighton do, and I think it'll be close. But I'm going to say 2-1.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think 2-1. I think Brighton will score. I think that will happen. Lewis Dunk obviously is a massive danger from set pieces. I feel like it's because he has scored. I think he scored at Old Trafford earlier this season, so I do see it happening again.
Yeah. Kind of oddly loving this situation where we have a match every day, basically.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. I don't know how fun it is
more
for the
football,
players.
the better.
for us, obviously, over here, we've missed out on the Euros this summer, which would have been a similar sort of situation, as you know, Arjun. I mean, like 2 or 3 games on every day sort of thing. So it's almost sort of compensating for the fact that the Euros have been cancelled. And it's got that whole feel about it, of 2 games every day, nice weather, sun, people. Well, the only thing people aren't doing is outside in pubs watching the games because they can't at the moment. But
But that is actually about to come back soon, I believe.
Yeah. But the main thing is hopefully everyone's staying safe and well. So how's things with you, Jayson? Is it all right over where you are in the States?
Well, I'm in New Jersey, which is one of the majorly hit places, but I'm in the southern part of New Jersey, so I'm more towards Philadelphia.
Okay.
So it's not quite as, it hasn't been as bad. Where it's been really bad is where it's densely populated, like up by New York City. But out here, I mean, it's still odd because it's the thing I've been saying the whole time, and I think Arjun talked about it with me a while back when we weren't sure whether the season was going to come back. It's not like a hurricane or a big snowstorm where you kind of know, okay, it's going to be bad for a few days and then it'll be fine. You just don't know. It literally could be forever. How about for you guys? Are they starting to relax restrictions there or not really?
Yeah. Do you want to go, Arjun, or
I'm happy to. They are. It's getting decreased pretty much every 3 days. I mean, the 2 meter distance is being reduced. The pubs and stuff are starting opening, zoos and restaurants, I believe, and obviously there is the potential apparently to have socially distanced football fans in the stadium, like what they're doing in the Netherlands, obviously having, I think it's like a 2-chair gap between each fan, so that at least will add some more atmosphere to the ground, I guess. But I don't know whether that will actually materialize anytime soon. I'm sure it will wait till the start of next season. But like you said, Joe, I mean, the Euro obviously not being here we're being kind of recompensed with the way the games are playing at the moment. But then we look forward to the next few years when we've got 2021 Euros and the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, which will be, it's a great 2 years of not having to wait for about 4 weeks for pre-season to begin.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it is getting better. But I'm afraid that is all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening, and thank you to both Jayson and Joe for joining me. It's the first time you guys have been working together. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Definitely.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, next week we will obviously be discussing the Brighton and Norwich games, hopefully discussing the semi-final draw for the FA Cup, as well as previewing United's next matches at home to Bournemouth and away to Aston Villa in 2 important games in the relegation battle. If you have any questions or any topics you would like for us to cover, then please comment below on the YouTube video or on the Twitter or Facebook post. And if you enjoyed this, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on Twitter for all of our content.